Alright, in this session, we're going to cover some tips regarding snaps and then discuss layering within the 3ds Max environment, and we'll see how far we can progress. We'll likely also have time to explain the Align tool as well. Hello everyone, and a very warm welcome to all students. I hope you've been having a great time and that you're ready and full of energy to dive into the next part of our 3ds Max tutorial. Let's get started. First, regarding layers, I'll create a few objects. 2 boxes, 2 cones, let me add another one, and 2 spheres. Now, for those who have worked with AutoCAD, you know that layering plays a very crucial role in professional files within the AutoCAD workspace. It might not seem as vital in 3ds Max, meaning I haven't seen many people consistently use layers. So, for those who don't know what layering even is in a scene, let me give a brief explanation. We can organize the objects or shapes in our scene based on their shape, color, family, or any category that we prefer, or any classification that might be important to us. We can group them to perform actions collectively, like hiding them, freezing them, deciding whether to render them or not, assigning colors, or any other tasks as a group. In scenes that might be very crowded, its importance really becomes clear. And for someone who gets used to working with this layering workflow, it significantly boosts the professionalism of their work. Now, layers are found under the Tools menu in the Layer Explorer. This Layer Explorer window will open for you. In older versions of 3ds Max, it might be labeled as Manage Layers or Layer Manager. But either way, you can find it under Tools. Alternatively, if we right-click on an empty area of our main menu, a menu opens showing the toolbars and tools that are currently active or inactive. The ones checked are active, like the ribbon, which was down here, or Command Panel, which is located further down. I've mentioned those before. Time Slider, Viewport Layer tabs, and the Corona Official Toolbar, which belongs to the Corona Renderer, and the Main Toolbar. Even the Standard Main Toolbar, V-Ray Toolbar, or Project. You can activate or deactivate any of these. For example, if I check this Layers toolbar, if you recall from the intro, I mentioned each has a handle that you can drag. See? It quickly snaps underneath another. Or it can go between them. If I release it, it sits right in between, or it can be placed below, or it can be docked on the right side. Or it can be moved to the left side. Or even at the bottom. As you can see, we can release these handles on all 4 sides of the viewports. For instance, I'll place it here so you can see that just like the top, we now have a toolbar at the bottom as well. Again, from that same spot, you can click and drag it to have it floating in the scene. Alright? These are the layer tools. And the most important one here is the Toggle Layer Explorer. When I click it, it opens that same window for me, along with some handy options in case we don't want to open the full window. For example, it shows us the layers, and we can create new layers or place objects into layers, and other tasks that can be done here. Well, I'll open this main window, and we can see that in our scene, we have one layer where all the objects are located. Plus, you can see here that geometry, shapes, lights, cameras, and all the elements found in the Create tab are listed here, so that if you need to find something, you can locate it more easily. Now, I'll just quickly use this plus sign here to create a layer, and I can name it. For instance, box. All right, I'll click outside to deselect it. Why? Because if it's selected, and I click the Create New Layer plus sign again, it will create one inside it. See? Now another layer appeared as a sublayer, creating a layer within a layer. I'll just right-click and delete this one. So, I'll click outside that area and create another one. And again, I click outside. And sphere. Okay, I think I named it. All right, you can see that the frozen option, or freezing, is available here. You can freeze an object or unfreeze it. And you might have noticed that as soon as I froze it, it disappeared. Why? Because the option to view frozen layers is turned off here. I'll turn it on, so frozen layers are visible. Now I'll unfreeze it again. The renderable option helps you decide whether this layer should be rendered or not. It's currently on, meaning layers will render. And if you click it, it turns off, and that layer won't appear in the render. Or you could have Display as box. What does that mean? It means it will appear as a box in the scene. This is for when your objects have complex geometries and you want to make your scene a bit cleaner and lighter. You can take layers that are very crowded, which you aren't currently working on, and as long as seeing them as boxes isn't a problem, you can set them to Display as box to make the scene run smoother. Now, I want to assign some objects to layers. First, I have my active layer here, which I can change. And secondly, I can select the boxes right here, grab them, drag and drop them into the box layer. Now they're inside. I can also activate a layer. Select those spheres, for example, and click the Add to Active Layer option. You'll see that the selected sphere moves into that layer. Alternatively, if the sphere layer is selected and set as my active layer, any object I create in the scene will automatically go into that active layer. All right, I'll open the default layer again, select these two objects, and put them into their own layer. Well, you can see that if I go into the layers and, for example, freeze the box layer, they will be frozen in the scene along with any other options I choose. Very well. That's it for layers. I can right-click again and remove the Layers toolbar from here. Additionally, within the Layer Explorer window, you could also select various options from the layer menu. Alright, the next point is working with snaps. We have several different types of snaps here, but the most important ones are these first three options. If you look closely, the first one has a 3, the second one shows an angle, and the third one shows a percentage. If I open this 3, it includes 2, 2.5, and 3. First of all, what are snaps? Sorry, let me unfreeze all first. Alright, suppose I want to move this cube and place it on top of this other cube. Or align this corner with that corner of the cube. First, I'll turn on the snap, and you'll notice that when snaps are active, your mouse locks onto the points that your snap settings allow. How can we control these points? If you right-click on the icon, a window opens. In this first tab, Snaps under the Standard section, it provides options. Currently, only grid points, meaning the intersections of these grid lines, are locked. I'll uncheck this and check Endpoint. Or I'll check Vertex. I think Vertex is better for now, and then I'll close it. Now we see that it locks onto this vertex. When it locks onto the vertex, I can click and drag it, meaning I click, hold, and pull, and place it exactly where I want. The target point must also have its snap active. So, if I want to place it right in the middle, I should activate midpoint, and then place it right there. Now what's the difference between 3, 2, and 2.5? Well, to help you understand this difference, I'll move this cube to a higher elevation. And now I want to grab this corner again and place it on top of this other corner. See? It moved exactly there, meaning it moved along X, Y, and Z. It moved the object across all 3 axes for me. Now, I'll press Ctrl-Z or undo. And this time, I want to use the 2D snap. What happens if we move it this time? As you can see, it doesn't catch that point at all. See? It doesn't pick up that point at all. Why? Because 2, the 2D mode, means that when you click a point as a snap and want to move it or perform any other action, it must be within the active grid plane. Let's see. It still doesn't catch any point because there's nothing on that specific plane. However, if you look closely, this cube, this cone, and this other one are all on the same plane. So I should be able to take this. Let's say the lower corner, and see? I can snap it to any of these corners that share the same plane. For example, I'll press Ctrl-Z here. Now, what if I want to place this object exactly above this point? In that case, I'll use the 2.5D snap. I grab this point, and you can see that it detects it. I'll place it perfectly over this point. Now it's aligned with the target point, but it remains on its own active plane. So you've now understood the difference between 3, 2, and 2.5. I'll turn this off. What is the second mode? Angle snap. This relates to angles. What is its use and where can we see it in action? We see it when we want to use the rotate tool. Excuse me. See? When this is active and you want to rotate this object, you'll notice it changes by exactly 5 degrees at a time. The same goes for the other side. It increments by 5-degree steps. Can we change this? Yes. Right-click on it. This window opens. And next to the Snaps tab, go to Options. In this section, you'll see options where you can find both angle and percent, which is for scale. The percentage is for scaling. It scales by 10% increments. And for the angle, you can see it rotates by 5-degree increments. Very well. Now I'll activate the percentage as well to test it. You can see that it scales our object by 10% steps. Alright. It increases the size by 10% increments. So that's it for snaps. And as the final topic for today, let me explain align. Suppose you want to position this object precisely relative to a second object without using snaps. There is an option in the toolbar called Align, which has various modes. With this Align tool, when you select the first object and then click Align, it asks you to select the second object. Your mouse cursor will also change to the Align icon. In older versions of Macs, the icon looks a bit different. But the concept is the same. Instead of these dotted lines, there might be another rectangle, and they might not be solid, but when you hover over it, a line will appear. Okay. I've clicked the first shape in the Align tool, and now I'll align it with the second shape. I'll click the second shape. Now, this window opens for me. I'll move it to the side so you can see the positions clearly. In the top, front, left, and perspective viewports. Current object refers to our first object, and target object is the second one. Naturally, X, Y, and Z axes allow you to restrict the translation to specific axes. For each shape, you have 4 options. The first is minimum, the second is center, and you can match any of these with the corresponding option on the other side. For example, you can align the minimum point of the first object with the minimum of the second shape, which represents the lowest X, Y, and Z coordinates. If you uncheck the X-axis at the top, no changes will be applied along that axis. Or you can use the center of the first volume, which is different from the pivot point, as the pivot point has its own separate option. You can even use maximum, which represents the highest coordinate values of the object's volume in X, Y, and Z. You can choose any of these configurations. For instance, align the center of the first object with the pivot point of the second volume, or the minimum of the first volume with the minimum of the second volume, or any other option you need. As you can see, it's performed with the highest level of precision. Feel free to try different modes and test them within the viewports. I want to place these 2 volumes exactly at their centers, so I'll click OK. Now let's see what happened. You can observe the result in the viewports, and perhaps best of all, in perspective. All right then. I hope you enjoyed this session. Until the next lesson, I leave you in the care of the great God.